my Yahweh! Why did you have to take them from me so soon? He was so young! Why? Oh, hey guys. The Black Critic Guy here, and I'm devastated. Completely and utterly devastated. Not because of the list I'm about to talk about, but because we've now reached the point where I must say au revoir to BCG Romance Month. It ended so soon. It didn't even have time to fully grow into the month that it should have been. But though our time was brief, I will always keep it near and dear to my heart. That being said though, this list did not help to ease the pain, as today I will be counting down the top 10 most tragic romances in anime. These were relationships that were either doomed to fail or torn apart by the cruel hand of the writers. Those heartless pricks! But before we get to the list, I do have a couple honorable mentions, and here they are. Okabe and Kurisu from Steins Gate, Koichi and Chiharu from Boys B, Yuki and Yuno from Mirai Nikki, and finally, Sister Rosette and Chrono from Chrono Crusade. And now, grab your box of Kleenex and get ready to bowl. Dying at the cost of bringing life into this world is my number 10 choice, Tomoya and Nagisa from the Clannad series. Now I already know that many of you are upset and butthurt that this choice is so low on the list. I can see the comments now. What the hell, Tony? Are you drunk or something? Only number 10? This is one of the most iconic, sad scenes in all of anime, man. It's touching, it's heart-wrenching, it's powerful. I cry every time I see it. This deserves to be in the top 5 at least, but you only put it at number 10? Man, this list is complete BS, man. I knew you were going downhill. I'm gonna unsubscribe from this channel, disliking this video, I'm leaving a nasty comment. I hate you, Black Critic Guy. Keep in mind, the only reason it even made it onto the list was out of sheer respect to the moment, its execution, the characters, and the overall impact that it's had on the anime community. When people think of some of the most tragic moments in anime, a lot of people bring up this moment, and rightfully so. It's a very powerful and sad moment. But it gets negated later on in the series. And yes, I am gonna hold that against it. But out of sheer respect for this moment, I included it on the list. If it wasn't for my respect for this moment, it wouldn't even make the cut because of the cop-out that happens at the end. But even with all that said, it's still a very moving and powerful moment. You have Nagisa, who just gave birth to their first child, and Tomoya is holding the baby in his arms and he's trying to show Nagisa, but Nagisa is going in and out of consciousness and she is slowly dying. And due to her already poor health, she passes away right in front of Tomoya and her child. But what really gets me with this scene is the devastation displayed by Tomoya. You see it in his face. You hear it in his voice. This is a broken man who lost his heart and soul. Nagisa was the only person who truly believed in him. The one person who stuck by him through the good and the bad. She made his life better than he could have ever imagined. She was the ray of hope in an otherwise dim world. And now that light has flickered out. And it's that look of devastation coupled with the soft, bright colors and the piano version of the Dongo song that plays in the background that makes it extremely difficult not to get teary-eyed when you see this moment. Failing the conquest at the number 9 spot is Keima and Chihiro from The World God Only Knows. It's rare to find a tragic romance in a harem anime, but The World God Only Knows pulls it off in spectacular fashion. Now when it comes to Keima and Chihiro, at first it seems like just another game of conquest. You know, Keima romances Chihiro, unleashes the spirit within her, and then they go about their lives as they did before. But in season 3, we learn that Chihiro's feelings are actually genuine. She does like Keima for who he is, which makes it all the more devastating when we see what Keima does next. Flat out rejecting Chihiro's feelings. Now look, I understand why Keima had to reject her. He can't be distracted from completing his mission of releasing the Jupiter sisters that are imprisoned in some of the girls that he previously romanced. But to see him deny someone whose feelings for him were true and sincere, someone that he too deeply cared for, I mean, man, that was as tough to watch as I'm sure it was tough on the characters. And to deliver the final blow to my Kokoro, the final moments of the 3rd season is Chihiro singing on stage about the loss of her first love and seeing both of the characters break down in tears. Keima on the rooftop and Chihiro in front of an audience. That shot of Chihiro clutching her guitar in tears will forever be ingrained into my psyche. Now fortunately, in the manga they do end up together, making them the only couple on this list that was granted a somewhat happy ending. Although this is the list of the top 10 most tragic romances in anime. And in the anime, it's nothing but heartbreaks and 808s for this couple. Now, while the number 9 and 10 choices had relationships that ended on a good note relative to what came before, from here on out, all the relationships will either end on a sad or terrible note. Starting with my number 8 choice, Shinichiro and Noe from True Tears. I gotta come clean, guys. This one right here still gets me to this very day. While logically it makes sense why Shinichiro chose Hiromi over Noe, considering that he loved her longer than Noe, I still feel like he chose the wrong girl. And I am willing to admit that my bias towards Noe comes into play here. I always felt that Shinichiro had a stronger connection and bond with Noe. I mean, for goodness sake, she brightened up his world and helped him to grow as an individual and as a character in this series. Whether they be joking around or having an intimate, sentimental, emotional moment, these two right here clicked. That's why the last episode was so demoralizing. Seeing Shinichiro tell Noe to her face that he loves Hiromi. He is choosing Hiromi over her. And to make it even worse is that even though he says that he loves Hiromi, his heart still trembles whenever he sees Noe. I mean, goddamn, man, just drive the stake deeper into her heart, why don't you? The truest thing to come from this scene were the tears it made me produce. Writing their names in the Book of Love at the number 7 spot is Light and Misa from Death Note. The tragedy of this romance, and I use that word very loosely, is how one-sided it was and the cold treatment Light gave to Misa. Now, you could make the argument that Misa knew exactly what she was getting herself into and she was perfectly fine to be used by Light however he saw fit. But just because she didn't see how toxic their relationship was does not mean that it was okay. I'm not gonna let it fly. He manipulates the hell out of Misa's feelings from the very beginning, using her unwavering devotion for him for his own selfish means. And he doesn't care what happens to her. I mean, if perchance something bad did happen to her, he wouldn't be fazed in the slightest. In fact, he'd be more upset at the fact that he couldn't use Misa anymore rather than be affected by what actually happened to her. That's how cold-hearted this bastard was. In fact, their relationship reminds me so much of the Joker and Harley Quinn's relationship, damn near mirroring it. A sweet girl like Misa is too good for Light. She's way out of his league. He doesn't even deserve a great girl like Misa Amani. But unfortunately, she fell in love with the bastard. And the fact that she did fall in love with this complete sociopath is a tragedy unto itself. Commanding this relationship not to be tragic at the number 6 spot is Lelouch and Shirley from Code Geass. Here, we have the complete opposite of Light and Misa's relationship. Though both share similar things in common, like a girl completely enamored with the male lead and a brilliant, methodical genius at the helm, what separates the two is that Lelouch is not a douchebag. He's actually a pretty stand-up guy, and he has a conscience and would never manipulate Shirley's feelings for his own benefit. In fact, if memory serves, he goes out of his way to make sure that she has nothing to do with her master plan, that she's not involved even in the slightest. This makes it all the more tragic, though, when she's unintentionally roped into his schemes, starting with the death of her father to regaining her past memories, which led to her untimely death. And that amazing, unforgettable scene where Shirley, bleeding out on the floor, confesses her undying love to Lelouch as he desperately tries to keep her alive, even going so far as to use his Geass to command her to live. I mean, I was completely shook. I was both moved and devastated. I can say with the utmost certainty that Shirley was the only person outside of his sister that Lelouch deeply cared for, and probably was the only girl that he came close to loving on an emotional and maybe even a physical level. And then she was taken away from him. The couple at the number 5 spot has a pretty nice boat, if you catch my drift. And they are Makoto, Sekai, and Kotonoha from School Days. This is unequivocally the most volatile relationship ever put in an anime, taking more casualties and ruining more lives than any other relationship that I'll mention before and after on this list. I mean, dear Lord, where do I even begin with this train wreck? Well, first, there's the initial innocent romance between Makoto and Kotonoha that falls apart once Makoto becomes sexually dissatisfied with Kotonoha, causing him to cheat with Sekai, who seems more open and willing to have sex with him, and she does absolutely nothing to stop him. In fact, she instigated and encouraged his behavior, and because of Makoto's unfaithfulness, Kotonoha's mental and emotional states start to unravel as she's in complete denial of Sekai and Makoto's fling, and she becomes more unstable to the point of self-destructive obsession. But it gets even better! In a fine display of poetic justice, Sekai gets a taste of her own medicine when Makoto gets bored of her and he starts sleeping around and cheating with other girls, also causing Sekai to unravel emotionally and mentally. This all culminating to what is quite possibly the second most disturbing moment in anime history. Sekai stabbing Makoto to death, followed by Kotonoha slicing Sekai open. This bad romance, in every sense of the word, turned a seemingly nice, upstanding guy into an irredeemable douchebag, a sweet, gentle girl into a deranged, psychotic killer, and a fun, likable girl into a disgusting, reprehensible, selfish slut. It ended friendships, it ruined relationships, and it destroyed the promising lives of so many people, especially Kotonoa, who seemed to have a bright future ahead of her until this piece of shit showed up in her life. Hers is the biggest tragedy to come from this. United and torn by love at the number 4 spot is Lucy and Kota from Elfen Lied. This romance is as touching as it is heartbreaking. Two individuals who are able to find solace when together, but ironically, whenever they do come together, terrible things occur, particularly death. It was sweet seeing their relationship start off so innocent, so pure, so promising. I couldn't wait to see them hook up together, only to see it come tumbling down in brutal fashion. And what places it so high on the list is that we get a twofer with this one, as we get two tragedies in one romance. The first being Kota witnessing the death of his father and sister at the hands of the very girl that he befriended and liked. And all of it due to a misunderstanding, mind you. And then, when he finally reconnects with her after all these years, he loses her again in order to protect himself and the others. But what sells the tragedy of Lucy and Kota was their final moment together at the steps, where Lucy, after all these years, completely opens up to Kota, telling him that he was her light in an otherwise dark world, how she truly regretted what she did to him and his family, and how she lived every single moment just for the chance to meet him again and to apologize. And after she said all of that, Kota then embraces Lucy, the girl that traumatized him as a kid, the girl that killed his father and her sister, and tells her that even though he can't forgive her, he still loves her deeply. The two then share a very passionate kiss as it flashes back to their moments that they spent as children, and then they both realize the suffering that each had to deal with over the years and share one last embrace. Truly beautiful. To me, that's one of the few perfect scenes in anime. It's powerful, raw, emotional, riveting, and moving. If you don't get a bit choked up after seeing this scene,
wipe yourself off, man. You dead.
Playing the music of melancholy at the number 3 spot is Kosei and Kaori from Your Lie in April. The very extraordinary thing about this romance is how the inspired became the inspiration. When growing up, Kaori was mesmerized by Kosei's playing and hoped one day to play alongside him. But after learning that he quit playing, she works to convince him to play the piano once more, and through her belief in him, he did, inspiring the one that inspired her. But unfortunately, this would all be for naught, as we later discover that Kaori is suffering from a mysterious illness, an illness that she succumbs to on the night of Kosei's final performance. And to drive the heartbreak home, Kosei receives a letter at Kaori's funeral from Kaori herself, explaining in great detail her true feelings for him. This stung the most because, one, this was a romance that never reached its full potential. It was cut woefully short. And two, you only tell him now? After you just died? I mean, not only is that a dick move, but that leaves a sense of regret with Kosei. Hell, that probably traumatized him even more. Traumatizing aside, the moments shared between Kosei and Kaori, whether it be on the stage or at school, were as beautiful and intoxicating as the lovely melodies each played in the anime. And when it's gone, it creates a void that makes you yearn for more, even though there are no more notes to be played. Oh my lord, this can't be happening at the number 2 spot! Guts and Casca from Berserk. Jesus fucking Christ. It just gets harder and harder the higher that we go up. Remember earlier when I said that the double deaths of Makoto and Sekai were the second most disturbing moments in anime history? Well, welcome to the first, baby. I mean, seriously, what's worse than your best friend in the entire world turning evil, betraying you, sacrificing your friends and comrades, people that you fought with, slept with, bled with, and bonded with for many years to be mercilessly killed and eaten by demons, and then to top it all off, the poison cherry on top of the shit sundae, he rapes your lover right in front of you as you are helpless to stop him. God damn! In a show bursting from the seams with rape, violence, murder, and betrayal, the fact that we were even granted a stable, consensual romance in Guts and Casca is a freaking miracle. And considering the lives both lived before meeting, it's a wonderment that they were able to even have a moment of bliss and happiness. But they did, and it was beautiful. And when it seemed like things were going well, nothing could possibly go wrong, shit hits the fan and the rug was pulled from under us, ruining the only good relationship, practically the only good thing to happen to the characters that Berserk could possibly have offered us. Instead, they just give us what we already expected. More rape, more murder, more betrayal. Thanks, Berserk. Thanks for crushing my hopes and dreams there. You're awesome. And now here we are at the number 1 spot. And did you guess it yet? Did you figure out what romance that I found to be the most tragic in all of anime? Well, if you didn't, now I will inform you, because I could think of no better example of a true tragic romance, or should I say romances, than Jinta and Menma from Anohana, the flower we saw that day. This takes the cake for the number 1 spot, not only because, much like number 3, this was a relationship, a romance that was cut woefully short due to an untimely death, so we never really got to see the full potential of where this romance could have led, but also because of the ramifications brought on by the death and the love that affected the entire friends group. In fact, this shouldn't be just about Jinta and Menma, it's about the entire friends group. So I'm gonna retitle this the Anohana Gang, because each played a role in the tragedy and each is still haunted by the event. Some more than others, obviously. I mean, really what you got here are multiple tragic romances all bundled together in one anime. It's a smorgasbord of tragedy. Romance denied by death, unrequited love, and a handful of love triangles. I mean, you got Menma, who's at the top, who's the unspoken leader of this group, the heart and soul of the group, and then from there you have Jinta, who likes Menma, but you also have Atsumu, who likes Menma. This causes a rift in their friendship, and then below them you have Naruko, who likes Jinta, and Chiriko, who likes Atsumu, and both of them are extremely jealous of Menma. You see, it's so many different levels, so many different tiers of tragedy. All these variety of emotions built up to the unforgettable moment in the shed that will forever change their lives. Like a domino falling, Naruko asks Jinta if he liked Menma, which causes him to run away in embarrassment, which then leads Menma to chase after him. But as she's chasing after him, Atsumu decides, hey, I might as well confess my true feelings to Menma, so he confesses to Menma that he likes her, but she never responds to his confession, and tragically it ends with Menma falling into a river and drowning, which Popo saw the whole thing, but did nothing to prevent it. Each of the characters suffered emotionally. Each were denied their chance at love. And each were culpable in the tragedy at the center of it all. This was a tragedy brought on by their own actions. This wasn't some outside force, some evil bad guy, or cruel twist of fate that caused this tragedy. They themselves were responsible. And worst of all, it could have been prevented. And that is why the Anohana Gang is the most tragic romance I have seen in an anime. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was my list of the top 10 tragic romances in anime. And I would love to know what you guys thought about my list. Did you agree with it? Did you disagree with it? Did you feel like I left any tragic romances out? And do let me know, what is the most tragic romance you witnessed in an anime? Comment below, let me know. Stay tuned. After this video goes up, I'm going to be working on my next anime review, and hopefully you guys really enjoy it. It's kind of like a semi-rant too, so stay tuned for that. I also have another video where I'm talking about an anime that I dropped because I just couldn't bear it any longer. And hopefully I'll give you guys another episode of Doki Doki Literature Club if you guys really want to see it. So do let me know in the comments below. Now I want to take this time to personally thank each and every one of the people who have donated graciously to my Patreon account. It's through your dedication, your donation, that I'm able to make videos like this. And if you'd like to support the Black Critic Guy just a smidge more, consider donating to my Patreon account. There's a link in the description. And as always, guys, if you'd like to see more videos of the channel, be a part of the Black Critic Crew, please hit that subscribe button below. Like this video if you really enjoyed it. And I'm talking about the second, crying his eyes out, because I just can't believe Romance Month is over. That's a Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.